Hi, automotive enthusiasts. Welcome to Boost Bureau, where today we dive into one of the most iconic machines ever to wear the galloping horse badge, the 1970 Mustang Boss 302. When you hear that name, it instantly stirs images of raw competition, road course dominance, and a moment in history when Detroit was locked in an all-out battle, not just for sales but for bragging rights on the racetrack. This wasn't just another version of the Mustang. It was a deliberate, calculated weapon built to take down Chevrolet's Camaro Z28 in the cutthroat Trans Am series. What makes it fascinating is not just the car itself, but the collision of culture, engineering, and marketing that birthed it. The Boss 302 wasn't a comfortable cruiser meant for Sunday drives. It was uncompromising, engineered with one purpose in mind: victory. And yet, half a century later, it's not simply remembered as a race car for the street. It's celebrated as one of the greatest American performance icons ever built. So why does this one-year-only Mustang inspire collectors, historians, and enthusiasts to keep talking about it as though it were built yesterday? That's the journey we're taking today. We'll uncover the story of why Ford felt compelled to create such a car, the specific engineering decisions that made it so unique, and how its cultural and collector impact continues to ripple through time. Along the way, we'll encounter the personalities that shaped its destiny, the rivalries that gave it urgency, and the unexpected ways it has influenced the collector market in the modern era. You'll see how a combination of racing regulation, corporate strategy, and a dash of rebellious spirit produced something more than just another muscle car. It produced a machine that even today demands respect. By the end of this exploration, you'll understand not just the mechanics of the Boss 302, but the myth that surrounds it and why, decades after its debut, it commands top-dollar, endless fascination and a permanent place in the conversation about America's golden age of performance. Buckle up, because the story of the 1970 Mustang Boss 302 is not just about horsepower. It's about pride, rivalry, and a moment when the American auto industry set out to prove who could truly build the ultimate driver's machine. And the road to that answer is one you won't want to miss. The late 1960s saw the Mustang rise as the ultimate symbol of the pony car movement, but success brought rivals, and rivals brought war. Chevrolet launched the Camaro, Dodge unleashed the Challenger, and suddenly Ford found itself needing not just another Mustang trim, but a weapon designed with precision for competition. The Boss 302 emerged from that crucible, blending engineering ambition with marketing bravado in a way that few cars before or since have managed. Micro story: picture the Trans Am series in 1969, road courses, buzzing with small block V8s, factory teams pouring resources into domination, and brand loyalty being cemented with every corner. Ford executives watched as Chevrolet, with the Camaro Z28, claimed victories that translated directly into showroom swagger. The Mustang's reputation, once unshakable, suddenly looked vulnerable. That urgency pushed Ford to greenlight a project that would turn the Mustang into something sharper, faster, and purpose-built to win. The 1970 Boss 302 was their counterstrike, born with racing at its core. Context digest. The rules of Trans Am racing limited engines to 305 cubic inches, a regulation designed to keep the field competitive and prevent manufacturers from simply dropping in their largest power plants. Ford responded by creating a hybrid engine, a Windsor block mated with Cleveland-style cylinder heads, yielding a high-revving small block that could breathe like a race motor. This wasn't just compliance. It was a clever exploitation of the rulebook, resulting in a motor that delivered on both track and street. The Boss 302 was Ford's demonstration of how ingenuity could turn restrictions into strengths. Micro story. But the Boss 302 wasn't only about what lay under the hood. Suspension geometry was reworked to deliver sharper handling, steering was quicker and more communicative, and even the stance of the car sent a message. This was not a boulevard cruiser. Road testers of the time noted that the car demanded precision from the driver, rewarding skill but punishing carelessness. That razor's edge quality made it stand out, not as the most comfortable Mustang, but as the one most true to the spirit of road racing. It was, in a way, a Mustang that didn't care if you liked it, it cared only if you could keep up. Reflection bridge. That uncompromising nature is part of why enthusiasts look back on the Boss 302 with reverence, because it spoke to purity of purpose rather than mass market appeal. Context digest. Beyond engineering, naming the car carried its own intrigue. The project's internal codename was simply Boss, reportedly a nod to designer Larry Shinoda's desire to keep details under wraps until launch. The name stuck, giving the car an aura of authority and mystique. Mustang had many trims and options, but none sounded as commanding as Boss. For a car meant to reclaim dominance, the name was as much a marketing tool as its aggressive styling cues. It wasn't just another Mustang, it was the Boss. Micro story. On the racing side, the Boss 302 quickly proved its worth. In the 1970 Trans Am season, Ford's factory team and their aggressive little Mustang battled fiercely with Chevrolet. It wasn't always about raw, straight-line power. It was about balance, handling, and endurance. Fans watched as drivers threw these machines around tight corners, fenders scraping, paint trading, pride on the line. The Boss 302, with its responsive chassis and screaming engine, wasn't just competitive. It was a spectacle that turned Ford dealerships into arenas of victory laps every Monday morning. Context digest. Yet it's important to understand the timing. The Boss 302 arrived just as the muscle car era was peaking, but cracks were forming in the foundation. Insurance premiums on high-performance models were rising, emission standards were looming, and the oil crises were only a few years away. In hindsight, the Boss 302 feels like a high watermark, a machine that crystallized the essence of competition before the regulatory tide began to wash it all away. That sense of last of its kind only heightens its value today. Micro story. Owners who got behind the wheel in 1970 discovered a car that demanded attention and skill. The clutch was heavy, the ride was stiff, and the car came alive only when pushed hard. For casual drivers, it may have seemed too harsh, but for enthusiasts, it was intoxicating. Every gear change felt like a challenge, every corner a test, and that dynamic created memories that lasted a lifetime. Stories of first drives, track days, and street encounters have been passed down like folklore, keeping the legend alive among collectors. Reflection bridge. These personal experiences illustrate how the Boss 302 wasn't just a car you owned. It was a car that owned you, demanding respect and giving thrill in return. Context digest. Collectibility today owes much to scarcity. Only around 7,000 Boss 302s were built in 1970, meaning survivors are relatively rare. Add to that the car's single-year distinctiveness, straddling the tail end of the muscle car era, and you have a recipe for desirability. Collectors aren't just chasing horsepower. They're chasing the story of a machine that existed because of a specific rivalry, regulation, and cultural moment. That cocktail of rarity and narrative elevates it beyond mere metal. As interest in classic muscle grows, the Boss 302 remains a crown jewel in many collections. Micro story. Auctions tell a vivid part of this story. When pristine examples cross the block, bidding wars often erupt, fueled not only by nostalgia, but by recognition of the car's historical significance. Enthusiasts who remember seeing them race in period bid against younger collectors who see them as tangible artifacts of a golden age. The dollar values climb, but what's really being purchased is pride, a piece of Ford's fight for supremacy, a key chapter in American automotive history. And as we step deeper into the tale, it's time to consider how the Boss 302's legacy wasn't confined to its moment in 1970, but continued to shape performance culture long after its production run ended. The legacy of the Boss 302 cannot be measured solely by its performance numbers or its sales figures. It must be understood as a cultural statement that echoed across decades. After the Trans Am victories in the spotlight of 1970, the car disappeared from showrooms, but its legend only grew. For Ford, the Boss 302 was proof that racing success could burnish the brand's image in ways advertising never could, and for enthusiasts, it became a benchmark, a reminder of what the Mustang could be when purpose outweighed compromise. Micro story. When the oil crisis and emissions regulations began reshaping the 1970s, cars like the Boss 302 vanished almost overnight. Heavy bumpers, restricted engines, and reduced performance became the norm. For enthusiasts, this only made memories of the Boss shine brighter. It became the car everyone compared the new, softer models against. Owners who held on to theirs through the lean years often speak of feeling like keepers of a secret flame, protecting something rare until the world remembered how much it mattered. Context digest. By the 1980s and 1990s, American muscle was staging a gradual comeback, but nostalgia was already fueling the collector market. Publications highlighted the Boss 302 as a pinnacle of Mustang performance, and club gatherings often placed it at the center of attention. While values were modest at first, appreciation grew steadily as people began to realize that fewer clean examples existed than expected. The combination of rarity and storied racing heritage created a market that would only accelerate in the years ahead. Micro-story. The story took an unexpected twist in 2012, when Ford revived the Boss 302 nameplate for a new generation of Mustang. This modern homage was more than a marketing ploy. It was an engineering effort to recapture the spirit of the original. With high revving power, track-ready suspension, and minimalist focus, it became an instant hit among enthusiasts, bridging the gap between the past and present. Owners of the original 1970 cars suddenly found their machines back in the spotlight, as conversations about lineage, authenticity, and heritage ignited anew. Reflection bridge. This revival proved that the Boss 302 wasn't just a relic. It was an enduring blueprint for how to build a driver's car that thrills without apology. Context digest. The collector world responded in kind. As the 2012 model rekindled interest, auction prices for pristine 1970 Boss 302s began to climb even faster. Restoration shops specialized in bringing barn finds back to life, and parts suppliers discovered a booming business in reproducing components to meet demand. The car's reputation had shifted from cult classic to mainstream legend, ensuring its place not just in private garages, but in museums and public collections worldwide. It was no longer just a chapter of Mustang history. It was the headline act, micro-story. Beyond the collector market, the Boss 302 influenced generations of designers and engineers. When discussing what makes a performance car memorable, they often point back to its balance of aggression and control, its refusal to compromise. Many credit it with setting the standard for drivers' Mustangs, a lineage that extends through the Mach 1, the GT350, and into today's performance models. The philosophy it represented, that a Mustang could be more than muscle, that it could be precision, still informs Ford's approach to building high-performance cars today. Context digest. In cultural terms, the Boss 302 has become a touchstone. Car clubs organize events specifically for Boss owners. Documentaries recount its racing glory, and die-cast models put it in the hands of younger enthusiasts who may never have seen one in person. Its story is told not just in horsepower figures, but in pride and loyalty, in the way people's eyes light up when they describe their first encounter with one. Few cars manage to transcend metal and become myth, but the Boss 302 has done just that. Micro-story. One striking example is the way multi-generational families bond over these cars. Grandparents who once watched them race introduce their grandchildren to the same cars at shows and track days. The cycle of admiration ensures the Boss 302 is never forgotten, always passed forward as part of American automotive heritage. The car ceases to be an artifact and becomes a living tradition, a rolling classroom of speed, style, and history. This dynamic is why, even as decades pass, its relevance never dims. Reflection bridge. What started as Ford's response to a racing rivalry has transformed into something far larger, a cultural pillar, a legend that continues to influence not only collectors, but the entire automotive landscape. And as we carry this story forward, it's time to explore the lasting consequences, the lessons the Boss 302 has taught, and how its myth continues to shape the way enthusiasts think about performance, pride, and preservation. The lasting consequences of the Boss 302 story are as much about philosophy as they are about performance. When Ford built the car, it wasn't chasing volume sales. It was chasing victory. That decision set a precedent for how automakers could use racing not just as spectacle, but as proof of engineering credibility. Decades later, the idea of race on Sunday, sell on Monday still echoes, and the Boss 302 stands as one of the most vivid examples of that principle in action. Micro-story. Imagine being a young enthusiast in 1970, standing by the track fence as the shrill roar of the Boss 302 echoed through the grandstands. That sound, that sight of a Mustang dicing with Camaros didn't just sell cars. It shaped identities. Many fans who experienced that spectacle never forgot it. And years later, when they could finally afford one, they chased the dream of owning a Boss. The cycle of memory to ownership ensured the car's story would never fade, carrying its impact far beyond its short production run. Context digest. In the broader market, the Boss 302 helped solidify the concept of the halo car. This wasn't a mass-market machine. It was limited, specialized, and intentionally sharpened. Its presence in showrooms drew people in, even if they ultimately bought a different Mustang. That model of creating a standout, attention-grabbing performance variant is now a staple of automotive marketing, used by nearly every manufacturer to this day. In that sense, the Boss 302 wasn't just a car. It was a template, micro-story. The lessons of the Boss 302 also ripple through enthusiast culture. It taught drivers that a car could demand respect, that performance wasn't only about horsepower, but about balance, handling, and precision. Owners who stepped into the cockpit learned quickly that this wasn't a casual commuter. It was a machine that forced you to rise to its level. That mentality influenced not just Mustang fans, but an entire generation of drivers who began to look at performance cars as tools for skill rather than just raw speed. Reflection bridge. By embodying that ethos, the Boss 302 bridged the gap between muscle car brawn and sports car finesse, reshaping expectations of what American performance could be. Context digest. Its endurance in the collector world speaks volumes. Even as trends shift, from muscle cars to imports to exotics, the Boss 302 remains consistently desirable. Auction houses list it as a centerpiece, restorers devote entire careers to it, and younger buyers still dream about adding one to their garage. That cross-generational appeal is rare and signals a kind of immortality, the kind reserved only for machines that transcend their original purpose. The Boss 302 doesn't just survive, it thrives as a benchmark. Microstory. Consider the ripple effect in motorsports. The Boss 302's success helped legitimize road racing as a form of American motorsport that could rival drag racing in popularity. It broadened the stage, showing that fans would cheer just as loudly for cars carving corners as they did for quarter-mile duels. That shift helped diversify the automotive culture of the United States, laying groundwork for today's track day culture, autocross events, and grassroots road racing scenes. Without the Boss, the landscape might look very different. Micro-story. Another striking legacy is how the Boss 302 reshaped Ford's own corporate DNA. Even in modern performance cars like the Shelby GT350 and Mach 1, the echoes of the Boss are clear, a willingness to pursue engineering purity, to balance muscle with agility. Engineers reference it, marketers leverage it, and fans celebrate it. In essence, the Boss 302 became not just a model, but a philosophy baked into Ford's identity. A compass point reminding them what performance Mustangs should stand for. Reflection bridge. That continuity ensures the Boss 302 is not trapped in 1970, but alive in every new Mustang that emphasizes driving experience over brute force. Context digest. Looking outward, the Boss 302 also helped elevate American cars on the global stage. At a time when European manufacturers were seen as the masters of handling and precision, the Boss 302 proved Detroit could build something to challenge them. It may not have been polished in the same way, but it was fierce, competitive, and proud. That sense of global credibility has since become crucial as American brands compete in worldwide markets. And the Boss 302 was an early flag planted in that territory. Microstory. At the human level, the car's impact is deeply personal. Ask any collector why they chased a Boss, and the stories are rarely about specs. They're about fathers who remembered the sound, uncles who raced them, posters that hung on childhood walls. The car connects generations through stories as much as through sheet metal. That emotional currency explains why values continue to climb. Because you're not just buying a car, you're buying a narrative, a piece of living history that binds communities together. And so, the Boss 302's myth endures. Not as a museum piece locked in the past, but as a living legend that continues to shape how we define performance, heritage, and the meaning of automotive pride. As we bring the story full circle, it becomes clear that the 1970 Mustang Boss 302 was more than just a product of its time. It was a lightning strike, a moment when engineering, culture, and rivalry converged to create something that could never be duplicated. It began as Ford's calculated response to Chevrolet's dominance in Trans Am, a sharp-edged weapon designed with a singular purpose. Along the way, it became a symbol of pride, a benchmark for enthusiasts, and a template for how American performance could evolve beyond brute force. Its legacy is written not only in trophies, but in the memories of those who drove it, raced it, or simply admired it from afar. Enthusiasts today cherish it as both a rare artifact and a living philosophy, proof that cars can carry meaning far beyond their mechanical parts. When you trace the arc of its history, you see how the Boss 302 influenced everything from Ford's future performance models to the collector market that thrives on rarity and story. You also see how it bridged generations, becoming a point of connection between those who lived its era and those who discovered it decades later. That kind of resonance is rare, and it speaks to the way certain machines transcend time, embodying values that remain powerful no matter how much the automotive world changes. The Boss 302 remains, even now, a car that commands respect, inspires loyalty, and ignites conversation. It is proof that racing heritage, when distilled into a road car, can create legends that last forever. So the next time you hear that name, remember it's not just about a Mustang with a special engine or a rare badge. It's about an idea that competition sharpens design, that purity of purpose creates greatness, and that legends are built when passion overrides compromise. That is why collectors can't stop talking about it, and why the Boss 302 will never fade from the story of American performance. Thanks for riding with us on Boost Bureau. See you next time, automotive enthusiasts.